So
Okay.
we just do it. It's recording.
67?
Oh, now that you're saying it, I'm gonna double check. Except I'm way at the bottom of the list at the moment. I need to start adding numbers to this list.
That would make my
Da,
lives a
da.
lot easier.
I I somehow opened the wrong list again. Okay.
66.
Mm. Ins at numbers 60s, sixes. It's is aliens.
Are those all dollar signs, she said?
Yep.
Okay, just making sure, because that's the story, right? James Cameron, there's alien on the
Yeah,
board. He puts a S. Everyone stands up and cheers. Then he adds the dollar sign part, and everyone starts screaming. I think that's what happened.
I thought
Um,
I would be debunking that, and I looked it up, and he at least confirms that's true.
Not the version
what
I just told.
Well,
the bit that surprised me is he like pitched this midway through making Terminator.
Yeah, because he thought it was
mhm.
Terminator's gonna be a flop or something.
Well,
Or
it was Terminator just
Well,
got delayed a bunch, and he's like, "Well, I'll work on some other scripts." And
he was working on. Sorry, go ahead.
because people liked the Terminator script, they gave him Aliens, and it's yeah.
He
so the
was
So,
working
so
flaw
he
on
is
was
this.
kind of still a nobody when they gave him this gig, which is insane.
Yeah, he was working on this script, Rambo: First Blood Part Two, which I don't think he ended up. I don't think anything he contributed to that movie made it into it, and a third thing all at the same time.
yeah, and the Brits all hated him. He filmed this in England, and they hated him because they didn't know who he was, and he was demanding,
Mm.
and
It's
he
true
didn't
reading.
understand tea breaks.
And the funny thing is, the exact same thing was happening to Ridley Scott at the same time with Blade Runner with an American crew. I think both of them are just workaholic maniacs, and maybe the crew was right. And you know what I mean? Like that. I mean, it's fine if you're a workaholic. He's like going around punching holes in walls and setting up lights in between takes himself while people are on break.
Don't do it with
Um,
the unions; they'll break your
I
legs.
I don't do it with unions because unions have rules set in place to not overwork people. That's all I'm going to say about that for
Okay,
now.
what are we doing here today? It's Films and Filth. It's this and Chaos Podcasting. It's Aliens. This is Matt.
It's
This is
Mark.
Luke's.
That's good enough for me. Okay, so
Yeah, Mark
yeah,
dollar sign.
I
A
started
hip hop
scribbling
name.
down notes when this movie was starting, and I realized this is a movie where I knew the entire movie from the school playground like long before I actually saw the movie. Like I was fully familiar with this movie when I was like 8, right? But I didn't
Mm.
probably see it till I was like 11 or something.
So
This
I
is Go ahead.
almost certainly saw this when I was like 5, but it wasn't in the rotation in the same way that like Terminator or RoboCop. And I didn't really come to appreciate it till quite a bit later. Because although it is an action film, it still has a lot of horror flavor. And it's not that I was scared of it, it's just that as a kid I found it boring. Because remember that I was watching like Commando and RoboCop on the daily, right? So I needed non-stop, very intense action, whereas this is more of like a slow build to some very short, sharp action scenes.
What if the carryover from Terminator had been Arnold instead of Michael Biehn? Would
I
that
also think that's legit part of why it wasn't. Like it didn't have Schwarzenegger or a big heroic robot. It had, action normal humans in the
right?
lead
What,
roles.
Ripley's not good enough for you?
She is now, but
No,
not
I
when I
know,
was
I know.
5.
No,
She can't
5-year-old, I
compete
get
with
it.
Schwarzenegger or RoboCop.
No, gonna give that because yeah, this is ultimate badass Ripley. She doesn't quite do it in the first one. She's too flipped out, right? Where in this one is she's just like, I'm in a James Cameron movie now.
But between this and Terminator, James Cameron seemed to have the idea that like you can have a female badass, but you have to put them through trauma in the first movie first. But he's matured enough by the time of Avatar that Neytiri can just be a badass from the off.
Right.
So, that's growth on his part.
Also, he didn't make the first Alien, so
No, but it was still like, because Terminator, he made both, right? And it was still Sarah Connor's not really a badass in the first one. She comes back as a badass in the second one.
yeah. Well,
And
she's
then
got her
Aliens,
two
it's
minutes of
like,
badass at the end, which is what Ripley gets in Alien, I guess.
yeah,
So I'm justifying what you're saying, I suppose.
yeah.
But once
I
I taped this off my aunt's HBO, I probably watched like 47 times. I also think this is one where Andrew's dad, regular guest Andrew, his dad had bought the VHS when VHSs were like $90. Like he bought Aliens. So I saw Aliens like several times before I ever saw Alien.
Um, Same, but once I was old enough to appreciate them, I did watch them in order.
Oh yeah, yeah, of course. But when you're single digits or whatever, I don't
Yeah.
quite remember what age I was when I saw
But
this, so
single
I was
digits, I
spit
probably
guessing
saw this
11.
once, maybe twice.
I have a kind of an interesting story, which is that in 1986, um, I was, I don't know, 9 years old. I went with some friends to see Flight of the Navigator because that was the film we were allowed to see. We watched all of Flight of the Navigator. Very good film. Then we just, before our parents were going to show up, which was, there was a while, we snuck into every other movie. So we saw bits of Transformers the movie, this movie, and Cronenberg's The Fly all on the same day. And somehow, I don't know, I saw some of them messed up. I saw the part where Megatron was almost dead and turned into Galvatron. And I don't remember exactly what I saw on The Fly, but it was messed up. I think it was the thing where the chimp got teleported and turned into a pile of guts. And I do not remember exactly what I saw from this movie, but it was scary.
I feel
Okay.
like
And
I'm hearing your origin story right now.
it kind of is. It kind of is because that all that stuff was like scary and traumatic, but also fascinating. But most of the time I took in this movie as a kid, it would just play on TV like a lot, and
Mm.
I would just take it in like lazy afternoon viewing, just kind of a lot. And for some reason, the original Alien, I think the TV station didn't get the rights to that until later, so that would start airing. I started becoming familiar with that later, and that was also kind of a afternoon
Maybe
viewing.
it's an
But
Atlanta area thing. I don't know.
yeah, probably whatever station that was that didn't have an affiliation was just like, oh, we picked up this thing now because the original Alien was more successful than this, which is interesting.
Hmm. I
Mm.
do
Adjusted for
though,
inflation.
the special edition came out in the late 90s for Aliens. Is that correct?
I thought it was earlier than that, but
Might have been.
maybe.
That's why it was in with it said with a
But
question mark.
late
Um,
90, but late 90s was when DVDs were when like you couldn't even buy videotapes until like the mid 90s.
right,
So
but this one hit
probably.
video first. I had it in one of the big derpy clamshell ones, and I think that
Hmm.
was the special edition. So maybe mid 90s. But
Yeah.
no, I've only seen that version since. But last night I decided to go theatrical. And the weird thing is, everything added to the special edition is good, but the theatrical cut is better.
Yeah,
I agree.
it's just better paced.
Yeah, and just the mystery when they land, because if you've already seen the colony before the Marines get there, it kind of takes a bit away. So
Mm.
all
I
that
agree.
colony stuff is cool, it's cool to see it running normally, and I like that sequence. But yeah, it is like something that you could take out of the movie and it actually improves it.
Well, it does a brilliant trick, which is that it's a sequel to a horror movie, and everything that you see in the theatrical version of this movie is like the aftermath of a horror movie.
Mm.
So it's literally if there was some way that this could have been arranged to where it followed directly, if the first movie had been about the colony, it would
Oh
have
yeah, if
worked.
this had been them landing like on the Nostromo somehow, then yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's just that movie didn't have a high enough budget to have like the level of carnage to yeah, it works the way it works, and that's great. I do think
But it
that
also it works in that way that it works better in the way people used to watch films than the way they watch films now. Where like maybe you saw Alien once 10 years ago and now you're seeing Aliens. You don't remember the exact details, so like, oh yeah, yeah, they're pretty much landing in vague alien situations, and that's
yeah.
enough. Whereas today it has to be like, oh look, it's the exact same console from Alien, and look, they've resurrected the dead actor from Alien for a scene.
Yeah,
Like,
they actually do bring back the Nostromo in the new one, don't they? Or find it or
yeah, yeah,
something.
yeah, yeah, yeah. They
Yeah,
salvage
okay.
it. Yeah.
I haven't seen it yet, so although it
They
is now on my computer.
they have the CGI version of Ian Holm, but inexplicably the actor they have performing as Ian Holm does a performance that is nothing like the performance that Ian Holm gave. Also, Lance Henriksen, brilliant performance in this. Both of those actors did the I'm a weird android thing,
Mm.
Oh,
and they
I
did it
think
incredibly well. The new CGI version or AI version of Ian Holm is just an evil guy,
Mm.
and that was infuriating to me. Like that there weren't
And
a
the
lot.
new android in that film is great.
Yes, he
Just
is. He's
Skippy and
very
Home.
good. He's the best actor in the film, like by a long shot, I think. But he's yeah, he's kind of wasted. They should have just made another one of him giving himself orders. But, that's I don't want to nitpick too much because we're talking about a better movie now.
Is this the
Um,
best Lance Hendrickson performance out there?
Pumpkinhead though.
Yeah, but come on, this
No,
one's way more iconic than
yeah,
that.
no, he's in top form. There was
He's
some bit
also
in
in
the
the
trivia.
Terminator, but you probably didn't notice him in that one.
Well, he was
No, he's
talking.
great in
He's
Terminator.
he's
No, he's
noticeable.
fine. It's
Yeah,
just like it's funny how small his role is because he just
Oh,
kind of
no,
shows
like
up a little.
his whole role is not being allowed to tell his stories, which is hilarious.
yeah. Yeah, he there was a bit in the trivia that he was so tired of not being successful that he was considering quitting acting if this film didn't break through, and then it definitely did.
Yeah, I guess this is just one where it had like big home video legs or cable TV legs because it was all
But it's
over
also
cable
the
TV.
highest gross, like I think the highest or one of the highest grossing films of its year.
But Alien
It
did
Yeah,
wasn't
better.
not
Okay.
success. Yeah, adjusted for
adjusted for
inflation.
inflation.
Okay. But well, I
But
think people probably know this movie. This both Mark and I are like, do we actually have to watch it again? And Luke, you might have
oh
been the
no,
same way, but
I knew
I
I had to
watched
watch
it
it.
for a treat. Like
yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
same here,
that
same
too.
here.
I
I
wasn't not
was,
going to take an excuse to watch Aliens.
can you give us the tale just in case someone's a little cool on it, which befuddles me. But hey, that's what we do on this podcast.
Mission objective: investigate LV-426. Accompany the Colonial Marines as a consultant. Bonus objective: overcome emotional trauma. Mission objective: get to the chopper. Escape from the alien hive aboard the dropship. Bonus objective: get the Marines out aboard the APC. Mission objective: nuke them from orbit. Detonate the reactor and kill all the aliens. Bonus objective: rescue Newt. Mission objective: boss fight. Kill the alien queen using the mech suit power-up. Bonus objective: complete before the time runs out to save Bishop. Congratulations, you have defeated the aliens. The galaxy is at peace. Let us pray for a true peace in space.
Yeah, I don't know if do we ever get a peace in the Aliens universe? I feel like nothing's ever peaceful in this
No.
universe.
No,
There's no
and it
true peace under capitalism's boot.
there's no true. I think there's no true peace under the two producers of this film. One of which is Walter Hill, who wrote and directed The Warriors. Did you guys do any diving on this stuff?
I've probably heard a lot of it before, but I didn't like dive into it last
Uh,
night.
I had like a
Walter Hill,
cursory Wikipedia read, but I didn't get mega
yeah.
deep.
Walter Hill and David Giler, I think it's pronounced. They're producers on, the first three films, and it sounds like their bickering basically ruined the third one. And there's definitely like some back and forth with James Cameron on this, even though I think they mostly left him alone, and most of his problems were with the British crew. He did it. He did a whole thing at the end of production where James Cameron did, where he was like, "Well, I could say the only thing that kept me going making this film is the idea that I could drive away from Pinewood at the end of this and never come back."
Well, I did watch the special edition of Alien 3 maybe like a year ago or less. And the
Mhm.
thing with that is it's actually pretty well made. It's the movie that actively hates you, the viewer watching it.
The funny thing is that, I mean, my whole life I've been like, well, it's a horror franchise. It's a horror movie. So it's like, of course, it's okay that they kill Hicks and Newt at the beginning because that's something that would happen in an awful, horrible future. This time around, I'm like, oh, I kind of get why people hate it. They spend so much time in the Ripley Newt relationship in this, and that's just for nothing, really.
Yeah. And
Um,
also again, our age, I mean, you got to roll, right? The kids
yeah.
would say like you're Hudson today. Start screaming, and that's what you do on the playground. The girl that wants to
Yeah.
play with the boys is Newt, right? Or Ripley.
Okay. No, that didn't happen to
Mhm.
me, but
No, I know. I remember the Oak Cliff Elementary School wooden playground running around doing aliens on there. So
I
before
think
I'd ever seen the movie.
I think it's more just that I am the age that many of my friends have children now, and
Yeah.
that's why I feel differently about it.
I mean, half the
Um,
quotes in this movie were screamed at and on Boy Scout trips.
yeah, there are a lot of great moments in this film. That's like its greatest strength is there are so many. I don't know. sketches. It feels almost like sometimes they're just little bits that all come together to form something that is entirely good.
Hmm.
Yeah, no, I'm just sitting here trying to think of any other movie that got so much into boys running around when I was a kid. I think this is the top. Like yeah, this is the one that ingratiated itself mostly into our, 8 year our South Park culture.
It it is very interesting to me that you guys went into the trauma aspect of this a little bit. It's very interesting to me how many traumatized characters there are and how differently they all behave and how they
Well, yeah,
interact.
yeah, every character is traumatized and
Well,
mostly dead.
this film was
Yeah.
made post Vietnam. Um,
Hmm.
the guy playing is his name Apone? The
APOC.
no, that's
No,
from
that's
Matrix.
Matrix, yes.
But he was a Vietnam vet
Anon.
who was living in the UK because he didn't like how America treated Vietnam vets, and
Hmm.
basically ad-libbed his whole role, reliving his Vietnam experience.
Was that the leader of the Marines?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Because he actually had some kind of like high grossing single in 1975 that charted in the UK.
Oh
I
yeah,
didn't
yeah.
look into it.
Well, that's why I was hanging out there, I guess. Or reason number
That's,
two.
I didn't have a chance to listen to it, but
But yeah, like
that
this,
guy's great.
but yeah,
Th- th-
this kind of like, the American bravado going in and then getting absolutely wiped out by a technologically inferior force. It's not subtle with its Vietnam metaphor
It's not, and at the same time, it is very subtle
because it's
how.
not a jungle.
Yeah, okay. I mean, it is subtle how all the Marines are kind of stupid, but they don't. I feel like they get they're Cameron's able to thread the needle between feeding these dumb idiots just into a meat grinder and giving them characterization
He gives them
and
just enough characterization to care.
yes.
Like that,
th-
none of them are deep characters, but they've got you could describe any one of them in like one line.
Oh, you're
Yeah.
you're setting me up, dude. I'm sitting here looking at the wiki, which is mildly hysterical, where it says William Hope is Gorman, the Marines' inexperienced commanding officer. Al Matthews as Apone, the Marines' cool-headed sergeant. Bill Paxton as Hudson, a boastful but panicky colonial Marine private. So yeah, they're doing it right there in the wiki description.
Yeah, but that works. That's all you need for this kind of film.
Yeah, what do they do for
Like I remember the last film we said that about was like Skull Island. Does the same thing. It doesn't. I don't remember anyone's name from Skull Island, but that's because they repeat everyone's name 100 times in this film.
Yes, that's one
Yeah.
one of the reasons I end up on the playground. Hey, Vasquez ended up in the other characters list. That doesn't make sense. Isn't she like a
Well,
star kind of?
It
should
was
we
her
talk
first
about
film.
Vasquez a little bit?
Sure.
Oh, because she's the wrong ethnicity. Is that what we're getting at?
So she is her family is from Brazil, but she is a pale Jewish woman who basically wore brown face for this film to play a Latina.
Hmm.
Oh.
I
If
was
you want,
fully
if you
tricked
want to
times
think
eight.
about how
So
she really looks, she's the stepmom from T2.
right, right.
She's the pale,
Oh.
freckled ginger woman in T2.
Wow.
And here she is as a very brown Latina.
Well, I wonder if that's like wiki politics. Let's shove that down into the other people in this movie box as opposed to the main character box.
But no, Vasquez is pretty significant.
Yeah, yeah. It
Yeah.
doesn't seem like someone you would not put on the main cast list, at least, you know?
Hmm.
It was her first film and well, I think from what I understand, it was like they didn't think they could get a woman character who was that like buff.
She was like an actual bodybuilder in the UK at the time, I think.
Yes. So, yeah, that representation thing is ugh. But yeah,
She's a
that's one
science
of those
officer in Star
people
Trek
contain
Generations.
multitudes, right?
Irish mother in Titanic.
There you go. So this is fifth highest grossing movie of 86. Falling behind in order Back to School, Karate Kid Part 2, Crocodile Dundee, and at the top, Top Gun.
Nah,
But,
I mean, I know it's
uh,
about money, but
right.
Aliens goes above all of those. Come on.
I mean, after Aliens, we have Star Trek 4, The Color Purple, Ruthless People, Ferris Bueller's Day Off, and Down and Out Beverly Hills. None of these are on the good list. So there you go. And I mean, right?
Bad year for movies. No, 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 great year for
No, there
movies.
are a ton of good
I
movies
know,
on
I'm
the
being
top
sarcastic.
100. I mean, Transformers, the movie is like 108. That's, how good that year was.
Wow. Well, of course, that wasn't like a financially successful or anything at the time either, because no one knew what to make of
No.
Transformers the movie at the time.
Well, nobody thought that kids would be traumatized by Optimus. But then we're also in a period of time where Back to the Future is 92 on this list. It opened in July 1985. So, like, movies would just last for months and months and months and months. It was like, wow, Care Bears movie 2 is at 80? What the hell's going on? Life is
The
insane.
Care
Anyway,
Bears were popular at the time, man.
all right. I'm just assuming that that movie was just a bunch of clips from previously released TV episodes. Anyway, Flight of the Navigator is at 49. Howard the Duck is at 53,
Something
etc.
I never noticed until not this past viewing, the previous viewing
Yeah,
is Bill Paxton's soul patch in this movie. I never noticed
I
that
noticed
before.
that for the first time this time as well. Yeah,
Okay.
I missed that. I
It just
just
yeah.
was
There was like a
thinking,
close up of him, and I was just like, "It's just the tiniest little soul patch under his lip, like he missed a spot shaving." It is dreadful.
So this is one
I,
of those movies that we said, how do we talk about it? So I guess
oh,
we don't usually do this, but I wonder if we should just kind of move through the sections of the movie a bit.
Well, I
We
was
could.
for me
well,
the aspect of this movie that I think I want to talk about the most is that I don't know how influential this movie was in film. This is perhaps the most influential movie of all time in video games.
hmm,
Yeah.
No aliens, you don't have Doom, you don't have Halo, you don't have Gears of War. You could
Metroid.
argue you don't have Warhammer. Metroid is Alien.
Oh yeah, you're right. But still, stuff from
Yeah,
Aliens does make its way into Metroid 2,
eventually, yeah.
and probably some other stuff.
No, I was certainly watching it last night, just like thinking, how does this work as a video game sequence? So it's pretty on the nose, and
It literally
which
ends with a boss fight and she gets like her robot power up. Yeah.
yeah.
Have either of you guys played the Aliens arcade game, which
uh
is literally the second half of the movie?
It's just you shooting aliens coming at you, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
a
yeah.
it's a
I played a
it's a
bit of that.
Konami
It's good fun.
arcade game for
what year
it's
was that released?
probably 1990-ish.
Oh, I definitely played it then. Yeah, okay.
It was
Um
post Ninja Turtles.
I played the Alien versus Predator games that are pretty good. I haven't played Alien Isolation.
Me neither. I kind of I'm not scared. I mean, maybe I'm scared a
you're
little, but I
scared.
don't really want to play a game where there's no combat.
If I want to like actually possibly kill Mercy, I'd make her play that because
Oh.
she can't handle horror, especially can't handle horror games, and is terrified of the aliens. So
I'm not as much scared. Like I find it frustrating in a game where it is, horror games are basically inherently violent if you're dealing with something that can kill you. I don't
mm.
like playing a game where I can't fight back. It's like I don't even like playing Pac-Man. Like why doesn't Pac-Man like Pac-Man can
you
kill sometimes.
get the big
I
one and
know,
Kill
I
'em.
know.
they're ghosts.
You got to
You
do the
kill a
right
ghost.
drugs, man.
All right, yeah, you're right. But, Pac-Man Championship Edition is undeniably very good.
I guess the actual Alien game I've played the most is the Super Nintendo Alien 3, which is basically a Metroid clone.
Yeah.
It's
Is
a good
Alien
one
3
though.
one of those games where it's like a completely different game on Nintendo and Sega and people argue about which one's good?
I only played the Super Nintendo one if that has any
Mm,
bearings, but it might
Tell,
be one of those, yeah.
tell you what alien game I
maybe.
haven't played but wish I had is do you guys know about Alien Infestation?
I think I've
It's
heard
a
of
really
that.
close word to isolation,
So
so
it's a
now I
Nintendo
don't know.
DS game that's like a
Oh,
Metroid clone where
wait,
you
you
play
are
as
in
some
my
colonial
Right.
marines.
Yeah, I
And
do remember that.
you
I
have like a
didn't.
squad of marines and they basically act as your lives. So when one dies, you play as the next one.
was it supposed to be good?
It was supposed to be pretty good,
Okay.
but especially it ends with an amazing acoustic song about the alien.
That
It's like alien.
I'm
Yeah,
looking at
I have not played
screenshots and
this.
I have not played this, no.
Do yourself a favor and look up the song on YouTube. In fact,
Okay.
Matt, download that song and play out the episode with it.
All right. Yeah, I haven't played a whole lot of alien themed games.
I
I
haven't
was
I haven't played a lot of Alien theme games, but
mm,
I've played the whole Halo series. And like
mhm.
Avery Johnson in that is just the black commanding officer from this. Like
Yeah.
I think it's on record that he's just basically a pastiche of that character. And like, yeah, every game where you play as a space marine and you use a big assault rifle to shoot a bunch of aliens.
Yeah, Mark has personally seen me play too much Halo and 2D Metroid. I haven't screwed around with 3D Metroid much,
I
but
mean,
I think I've done pretty much except for the most recent one. There's a pretty new
I'm
2D Metroid, isn't there?
There's one on the
I've
Switch,
played
yeah.
yeah, that one's great. I've 100%ed almost every 2D Metroid. Um
Nice.
not Zero Mission because the Shine Spark puzzles are bullshit, but
Mm.
it I actually was the point where I think I could 100% Metroid Fusion in like an hour and 5 minutes, which is
Sick.
pretty good. But I was pretty bored at the time. I just
Hmm.
never,
Well, the speed running skills are not built by people with a whole lot on their schedule, I guess.
yeah.
Um,
Well, there wasn't so much to play in 2006 or so. Now there's too much.
so yeah, I'm gonna try my experiment and say opening space station sequence. Does anyone have a particular note or thought there? She
This
gets
was
rid
the
of her cat.
first time I realized that I've seen the extended version a lot because I was waiting for them to tell her about her daughter.
Right. And that
Hmm.
do they
Me too.
say something about it, don't they? Just you don't see a picture. You see a picture in the it's
I
and
Not even
didn't
a
see
mensch.
anything. No,
okay.
nothing.
I
And
swear they
and
said
it's
something
like
like you're I guess I just did the math when they said it's been 57 years, like because I've seen the special edition too many times.
yeah.
Hmm.
And I can understand why they would put that in, but I don't think that it's necessary for that to like I think that she could have that relationship with Newt without the daughter, and most of the time Ripley does not feel like someone who had a kid at some point
Yeah,
for
that's
No,
whatever that's
she
worth.
was such a like career person in the first film. The idea that she had a child back home that she gave a damn about did not feel that way when you're
Yeah.
watching Alien.
Yeah, neither of these films make that feel like that. You see Alib from Space 1999 on the view screen.
oh, do you? Okay, I did not
Yep,
catch that, so I
that's
wasn't
Alib.
paying enough attention there. Um, I don't know. I guess no was probably the correct answer for her as she learns, especially with the once we consider Alien 3 and 4. Well, you always tell Burke no, though, don't you?
Um,
Burke's a no man.
it's the I think the possibly the worst plot hole in this movie, or I don't know if you call it a plot hole, major convenience is the fact that Ripley is like found floating in space, just like in overwhelming odds against it, and then all of a sudden they lose track of the colony with all the aliens on it, like right
Okay,
after.
yeah, okay. I was gonna say it's the finding
No,
her
it's
after
not a plot hole.
57.
They explain it.
Do they?
Yes, she discovers that Burke gave the order to investigate that spaceship,
Oh,
which
okay,
he only knows about
all right,
because of Ripley. So they
okay.
didn't they lost contact because he had got them all killed based on her information.
And then he basically like sneakily got her fetched then. Okay. Well,
Hmm.
good.
And I
Once
think
again,
that's
you're paying more attention than I
yeah,
am.
other than pacing, that's a good reason to take out the original colony footage, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, I totally agree with you, Matt. I think the theatrical version works better.
It's perfect to
It's
watch that one, then on your disco deleted scenes, and then you get all that stuff. That's fine, but yeah,
well,
it's not like it can't be stewing in your head as
Well,
extra stuff.
they could have worked it in where it's like as they arrive at the station, they watch those videos or something. But yeah, I don't think it's needed.
Yeah.
well, it's just we're living in a different time when all those extended versions came out, it was like the idea of getting to see extra bits from the movies you love was this insane novelty. Like, oh my god, it's amazing! You could see like Schwarzenegger is on a commercial for androids or whatever. Okay, yeah, that was actually better than the film, but still, so, there is stuff that did not need to be in the movie that suddenly you had access to. So it was this novelty of it. Now I don't even watch deleted scenes. I don't even watch commentaries all that much.
No, I mean, commentaries go listen to a podcast usually, right?
Yeah, listen to podcast. You can listen to an interview. You can, read a lot. You could just click the thing on Amazon that's like the X-ray that just shows you facts while you're watching it, which is fine. But mostly it's like, well, I have a lot of other things to watch, so maybe I don't need to watch a 20 extra minutes of something. But
Occasionally or
um,
something. Like I'll watch that extra Anchorman stuff, because that's fun.
yeah, that's
Oh,
like
yeah,
an
that's like a
entire
whole
other
extra
movie.
Anchorman.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I guess let's move on to gunship in the Marines. How many times have you cut yourself playing the knifey game or your
Oh,
friend?
no, I haven't. But I was taking a guy to hospital one time in a previous life, and when we got there in the waiting room, there was a dude stoned out of his mind, holding in a bag of ice his own finger
I
Oh my
because he was
God.
playing this game and had
I
cut off a finger.
again, I was in the Boy
Ah,
Scout, so everyone had a penknife, and they were like 9 or 10 years old. So there was some.
I've only played it with like a compass. I've never played it with an actual knife. So I've nicked
I've
myself a
done.
little bit.
Maybe is there a knife culture? I don't know. My parents came to visit last month,
Yes.
and the first thing my dad does, the first day, he's like, "Here, why don't you have this knife?" I'm like, "Okay."
Well, interestingly, when I went back to Mexico, the first thing I did was give Mercy's dad a knife because he's really into fishing and there's like very fancy Japanese fish knives.
I mean,
So,
look, it seems like a nice knife. I just don't
eh,
really know what. And then when I was at their room, they had
put
another
it in your
one.
prison
One, why are
pocket.
they flying internationally with them? That's a good question. But then they're like, here, have some cheese and crackers. Here's a giant knife to cut the cheese, and in the actual way, not
Hmm.
the farting way. Um,
I mean, our friend Marty, who passed away a few years ago, had like 100 knives. It was something like everyone basically got a knife after he died. I got a free knife, and it's just like I don't know where it is. It's somewhere in my box of belongings, but it's a big giant like the knife that Jason Voorhees would kill you with. And it was just one of many knives he had. So
didn't
yeah,
you have a notable
there's
gun
definitely knife
collection
guys.
too? Who got the guns?
He had a bunch of guns. I don't know who got the guns, but
By the
um,
way, look, we might be painting this guy wrong, but you would love this
he's a
guy. He's
very,
fantastic.
very nice person. One of the nicest people I've ever met. But he just had a lot of knives.
Yeah,
A
he
lot
likes
of
sharp
birds
things.
too. A
Mm-hmm.
lot of birds. The birds were
Birds,
sweet.
knives, guns. So in the playground, which colonial marine do you end up being?
Oh, I mean, I fancy myself a Hicks, but that's probably not true.
I would, my friends would absolutely have cast me as the Hudson.
The same here, just because I can
Yeah.
hysterically scream,
Yeah,
especially
I'm the
child
mouthy
version.
one.
Yeah, the mouthy
Yeah.
one gets to be Hudson. So the cool quiet type gets to be Hicks. That's not you, Mark. I mean, at least I'm the
Hudson,
quiet
no, I
type.
mean I am more of a
You
Hudson
are
than a Hicks
famous for
person.
screaming.
I scream all, yeah, and I am very anxious. It's very interesting to me that, like I was talking about the trauma thing, how Hudson is obviously traumatized, and so is Newt, and so is Ripley, but Hudson seems like the script is specifically annoyed by him. Like
I
he
know.
seems,
And then Paxton is just running with that as hard as he can. That's why it's such a great
yeah,
performance.
yeah, it's fascinating. He gets just enough depth, just like all the Marines, I guess.
Yeah, it's like
Well,
like
I
he's
was
yeah.
actually looking at the Wikipedia. He listed this as like one of the most difficult roles for him to play because he just had to be so high energy all the time. And like, yeah,
If
it
you
must be exhausting being that guy.
Oh, well, if you want to have some fun, look up the intro video to Twister Ride It Out, where he's in the pre-show video giving you the lowest energy performance ever. Like, yeah, there's a lot of twisters in the yeah. So that's a fun one. And him and Helen Hunt like hated each other, so they were filmed separately for the pre-show, and they're on like separate screens. Uh,
Nice.
like where they just look at the other way, right? They clearly did not film it at the same time. It's great. Unlike in this movie. What exactly does assholes and elbows mean?
Mm, it's just a bunch of stuff, I think.
Okay, I've never worked
Well,
that one out.
there isn't. There's the phrase "you wouldn't know your elbow from your asshole."
Yeah.
So, but I guess he's telling him like, make sure you know what's going on.
Oh, okay. That makes
Yeah.
sense. Just I wrote I heard that plenty on the playground as well. And then their vehicle, but like it's how much does that look like the Cybertruck? Because when I think Cybertruck, I see the aliens car. Maybe I need to look up the Cybertruck.
Yeah, I kind of see what you mean. But yeah,
I mean,
but that's exactly why the Cybertruck exists, is because Elon Musk thinks like, oh, that was cool in that sci-fi movie in the 80s, so that's actually going to work really well for me now because he's actually a
yeah,
stupendous idiot.
No, actually, the
yeah, it's
Cybertruck
a
looks quite different. So I just I when someone says Cybertruck, I picture the this car from Aliens, but it's wrong.
so
So it's
so
cooler.
there are,
It's
are there
reality.
Cybertrucks in Japan?
No, I've never seen a
God, no.
Tesla on the road.
I man, the first time I saw a Cybertruck, it was like laughter spilled from my mouth, like automatically. It was
Yeah, I
very
saw a
funny.
great like tweet where it's like I'm in a Starbucks and there's a guy here with a Cybertruck and every single customer who comes in is laughing at him and he's getting so angry.
I would get the
Yeah,
most excited when I was on the road and I'd encounter a Oscar Mayer Wienermobile in the wild. That was always the most exciting for me.
Yeah, here in
Cybertruck's
Japan, it's
funnier.
the decorated trucks. They're
We didn't
sick.
have Cybertrucks at that time.
Like the long haul truck drivers here, Mark, like decorate them up with like sparkly decals and
Oh,
neon
awesome.
lights, like just just because it's fun.
Yeah, look up a
The
YouTube video on
kids love them.
Japanese truckers. Some of them are wild, you know?
I
And
mean, as
also,
a
it's like super gay.
Yeah,
hell
like
yeah.
pink LED lights and like, blue neon
Yeah, they got
underneath and
vajazzled trucks. It's amazing.
I mean, there's definitely being a huge weeb, I do spend a lot of time at the Japanese arcades, and there's a couple of cars that I just recognize because they're like hatchbacks. They're slightly modified, but have like a million stickers on the back, and several plushies on the dash. I'm like, yep, these are my people.
Oh, the last time I watched Aliens, by the way, I think I just heard someone talk about it, how to save money, they're just like in the hangar, it's just massive matte paintings. And I totally noticed them last time I watched the movie, but not this time. This time I got sucked into the movie enough I kind of forgot about it. So just throwing that out there. But if you when they're talking in the
Oh,
hangar, if you really think about it, you're like, hey, they're just people on standing next to a wall.
dude, I was not ready for these Japanese trucks.
Oh, yeah, okay. That's why your eyes got so wide. I didn't
Yeah,
think it was what I
holy,
was saying.
holy crap. Okay. Why can't we have a Transformers movie where all the Transformers are these?
Yeah, sure.
Anyway, anyway, you probably
Because
never.
of the same people who accuse this film of being like who sorry, the same people who say everything is too woke forgive Aliens because it came out when they were kids. But it's like lead hero is a female who knows everything better than all the men. There's a buff woman in it. It's like a multiracial team of Marines. It's mega anti-capitalist. If this came out not attached to a franchise today, those people would hate it.
It has all those things. It's almost like this is like a less comedic Starship Troopers because it's got all the oorah too, along with all
Yeah,
that,
well,
you know?
yeah. This Starship Troopers aesthetically is very this, right?
Yeah.
I
I
feel
know
like
it's based on a novel, but like the Marines in that look just like the ones in this.
in some ways this is more subtle than Starship Troopers, and I feel like the anti woke people, they would, yes, they would be pissed about the women, but I don't know if they'd get the anti capitalist or anti
No, no, I
military
won't
stuff.
necessarily get that
Are
stuff.
we
Nah.
sure they push it pretty hard with Burke? He's like the worst capitalist this side of Gordon Gecko, you know?
Yeah, I don't know. That's a good question, but I didn't hear anybody complaining about the female lead in the new Aliens
No,
or
because
the
Alien gets away with it because
It
because
would be
it's
so
weird if it
grandfathered
grandfathered
in,
in.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think people seem to most people liked that movie more than I did, and I think it's the all the member berries. But
Yeah, that's the reason I didn't like it. Everything it did that
yeah,
was
me
new, I
too.
thought was cool. Like I thought the android was really well done. I thought the zero gravity sequence was great.
Yes,
But then
the
it's always
gravity
like
stuff goes.
they're constantly repeating lines from old movies and
Oh no, I don't like
yeah.
that. That's
The end mat is basically a big weird freaky creature, kind of like Alien Resurrection, and the lady is like in her underwear, but also in a power loader, but
hmm.
also uh somebody says "Get away from her, you bitch," and
Yeah,
also
okay.
somebody's in Reeboks, and
I might watch
also
this weekend. I mean, you're
it's
not spoiling
whatever.
because you're just telling me things I've seen in the first few movies. So
Yeah,
that's I want to get to Luke's point. Um,
I like Prometheus better. You know, I don't care how that sounds. I
I
thought Prometheus
Prometheus has
had
there's something
problems,
to
but there's
it's
interesting stuff in
ambitious.
it.
It's
Yes, it's very
ambitious.
ambitious.
It screws up a bit, but it's ambitious and a lot of things it didn't screw up. I mean, that's the thing with talking about aliens is like, what did they screw anything up in this movie?
No,
A
and the
few
other
effects
thing,
look dodgy, but that's the
yeah.
80s and that's the budget, and it still looks cool, right?
Well, the other thing this does a lot better than Alien Romulus is that that movie is like much like Alien Covenant. It does like full frame look at all these aliens coming like full motion straight towards the screen, and they all look pretty good. That's not as impressive as people think it is. This movie cuts away from the aliens so much
Yeah, the
because
alien is like Spider-Man. It looks cool when it's crouched and it's climbing on things and it's in weird poses. As
yeah,
soon as it stands up like a human being, it looks shit.
Yeah, even in the
yeah,
original movie, when you get that one shot of him, it looks
that's
like a
the one
dude in a
shot. Yeah,
weird suit hiding in
Like
pipes, you know?
the worst shots in this movie are when they're doing the action scenes. And you know in action movies when you throw a grenade and the bad guy somersaults away from it? The aliens are doing that. And I'm just like, oh, they're stuntmen. They're stuntmen doing action movie stunts with a silly hat on. But like, yeah, when they're like climbing down from like, especially when you've got the nest where it looks like the whole building is made of alien and they're just emerging from shadows and you can't tell what's them and what's, that's when these monsters are cool. But
yeah.
as soon as there's
Cameron.
a bunch of them on camera, they don't actually look that good.
The thing is, Cameron understands that if you the camera has to represent a point of view, the camera has to have thought put
Hmm.
into it. And when the camera, that's just a problem with a lot of horror movies. If the camera is focusing straight at a ghost and staring at it, that's not what you would be doing if you're in that situation. If you're in the situation, you're like in a high adrenaline thing and you're running around and you're shooting and you're running away from stuff, your eyes are going to be darting around. So for the camera to go like cut to the aliens real quick, cut to the heroes, cut to an explosion. That's that's how your human brain works. So this is much better because it's I don't know if he deliberately I'm sure he did think about this because he's obviously a genius and this was sort of his first chance to make something with a lot of money attached to it. But like it works really well and when you do get kind of a slower paced camera is during the power loader fight, which I have a new appreciation for because it's like everything kind of slows down and it's awkward and brutal, kind of like the They Live fight.
Well, it's
Hmm.
about getting the geography of a place, right? Because the first time the Marines go and we get the full geography of the place. So now if we start
Hmm.
wildly cutting, well, I know where everyone is basically. So you can
Hmm.
do that. The power loader, of course, you have to show geography of the room and what's happening. And then
Yeah,
when you're
one
in
of
tight spaces, you can do fast cutting because if you're in, vents, sorry, if you're in vents, it doesn't matter where you are for the action.
like people always complain about modern action and they talk about like cutting too fast or like a lot of different shots. But like Michael Bay does a lot of fast shots and cutting, but he usually does establish the location first. And I generally can follow it. The action movies I don't like, and this Marvel does this a lot, where I'm just in like a gray void and like I don't really know where anyone is in relation to anyone else. They're just sort of firing at each other vaguely.
Jumping around, bum, ba bum,
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
bum. Yeah.
But my favorite action scenes are when you feel like Matrix Reloaded, that fight scene in the stairwell, where it's first you see this location and you're like, oh yeah, there's going to be a cool fight here, and then a cool fight happens there. And like T2, right, where it's like, oh, we're turning up at this steel mill, we're getting a bit of a look at it. Oh, there's going to be a cool fight here. Like, I think a
Yeah.
location is so key to a good fight scene.
The thing that I don't like, and I mean, as much as I love the Orville, it's definitely guilty of this, but that a lot of Marvel things do, which is I would call it the cinematic camera preset in like a racing game where you'll
Mm,
see a camera will be like in a valley somewhere and you'll follow something as it goes by and then you'll follow something else but like no observer is going to watch something like that. A good
mm.
example of something good is in the Batman when a camera is just attached to the Batmobile, or it was
Or
attached to
the or
Penguin's
Penguin's
car,
car. Yeah, yeah,
and they
yeah.
just go in a straight line. That was incredible. Like just such a simple idea that is
This is
something that would.
especially key in anything like monster movie. A
Mhm.
monster movie that shoots the monsters like a video game, they don't feel big. Whereas if you shoot it from a lot of human perspectives, that's how you sell. That's why I think even though the 2014 Godzilla movie doesn't have much Godzilla in it, the Godzilla scenes in that are sick as hell. Whereas King of the Monsters, that came out a few years later, has way more monster action, but none of it's shot in that like handheld in the shit way. And like, yeah, here it absolutely sells you on the aliens because we're seeing like video footage from the troops, we're seeing like disoriented screaming, we're seeing just glimpses of them. So yeah, I feel like I'm in that room with them.
Yeah, if you are an omniscient observer, then you're probably God, and God is an uncaring God because he let this stuff happen. So
You
that's
do
my
have
basic statement on
also just
everything.
to go on what Luke was saying, you do have to wonder if the fact that everything is an HD screen now, like so if you make a movie, it has to be an HD screen, but you get
Mm-hmm.
something very cinematic from a fuzzy video screen, you know?
Yeah, yeah,
Well,
yeah.
there's a lot of discourse lately about HDR, which I am very interested in. Like Barry Sonnenfeld did a big old thing about it, and it's like, yeah, there are issues with current filmmaking that I'm not entirely qualified to dissect, but um, this movie. Everything is very dark in it, and I love that. It is that part of the 80s that a lot of people don't think about. People think about all the neon and stuff, but a lot of things in the 80s were very like dark and shrouded, and that is an incredible look.
This is a very dark movie. It works well because we just did Fear.com, right? Where everything just looked like
Yeah.
gloopy, dark
Well,
mess.
no, the thing is, like I said, I thought that movie looked great. That wasn't the problem with that movie.
I guess being incoherent was, but I mean,
Yeah,
compared to this, it didn't
that's the
look
problem.
good.
No, it doesn't look as good as this, but I
As
think it
a
looked
film
better
by one of
than.
the greatest filmmakers of all time.
Yeah,
Well, we are
no.
talking cinematographers now, so that at least adds a wrinkle. I
Well,
mean,
it was
aliens, of course,
shot
are
at
the great.
Pinewood. I
Yeah,
mean, I don't know. Is
by a
cinematographer on
by
this?
a angry crew.
Yeah, by a British cinematographer who is just pissed the whole time. Like this, they called
Oh,
him Gov a whole lot. That was kept coming up with the trivia. That it's like, Luke, if you call someone Gov a lot, are you mad at them?
Not necessarily. You call someone Gov
Yeah,
who's like in charge, but
yeah,
anything in British can be sarcastic if you put your mind to it. So
got it.
I couldn't figure
Adrian
out.
Biddle,
Hmm.
Adrian Biddle, who worked on. Oh, looks like this was kind of near the beginning. He did Event Horizon. This was his first film. He
Wow.
did
Okay,
Princess
good job.
Bride, Willow, Thelma and Louise, Judge Dredd. Yeah, Event Horizon, The Mummy. Well, all over the place with this guy.
Okay,
Interesting.
good
V
for
for
him.
Vendetta was his last one, and then he died.
Hmm.
Weird. Anyway, that movie looked good, but um, yeah, uh, I do remember a lot of the '80s looking like. I mean, The Fly looked a lot like this movie. Just like
Yes. Oh,
everything
yeah.
was at night.
Metal rivets, right?
Yeah, industrial.
Disneyland too. I mean, you go Star Tours, it's all metal rivets on the walls and stuff, same sort of thing.
I mean, yeah, Star Wars,
Right.
right?
Mhm.
Um, yeah, I definitely another thing I tracked for the first time watching this last night was I couldn't quite place Newt's accent because it was like she was half trying. I
Hmm.
couldn't tell what was going on with her
She
accent.
was just British, but doing a I'm in a movie accent.
That's an I'm in a movie accent because I was like, I don't think she's trying
No,
to sound
she's
American.
American. She's American.
She is. Maybe she
Is
was trying to
she?
sound a little British because she is on Pinewood.
Are you sure she's American?
That's what it says on the IMDb. I don't know if that's a
She
lie.
went
A
on to
former
live in
American
America, I know
child,
that much.
Okay.
former
Well, this
American,
is
born in
literally her only
Florida.
film.
She's from Florida. She's
Okay.
probably trying to cover up a own accent like this. Oh,
Yeah, yeah, maybe she was just surrounded by British thespians and doing a voice.
Okay. Well, I
that
thought
was.
saying that might have been a great big nothing, but there was something of that. What do you know?
I think that she's an uncommonly good and interesting performance from a child. It's
Oh
like
yeah,
from
definitely on the higher end of kid acting.
when you read the behind the scenes stuff, there's a lot of like here and there where she like it was something like she loved doing the thing where she slid through a vent, so James Cameron had to like got her to he got her to do what he wanted by promising her she could slide all she wanted to the rest of the day,
Hey,
stuff
if it
like that.
works.
You know what? Underrated thing. People always talk about Spielberg kids. James Cameron's good with kids. A lot of his films have a kid in, and they're never bad.
Yeah, for sure. Edward Furlong, what was he like 12? Terminator
Yeah,
2? And we'll get to that eventually, obviously, but man, what a performance from that kid.
but also like the Avatar 2 has a bunch of kids in it, and
That's true.
famously he told them you don't have to do press. He's
Yeah.
like, no, these guys are kids. I'm not dragging them around the world doing press tours, which is like, yeah, that's how you end up with them not ending up mental like most
That
movie kids,
works.
right?
Well, it's like we were talking about Come and See, where they were well shooting live bullets, but trying to keep the kid from going nuts. So which
Uh,
sequence is the best video game if you're playing it?
Hmm. Oh, going in solo and rescuing Newt. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Just dual wielding guns, taking out aliens.
Burning all the eggs.
Yeah.
I just want a mini game where
Oh,
I burn the eggs.
okay. I definitely have that note in here. What did I write?
Call it alien colon egg burning.
I just wrote it's got to be satisfying to light all those eggs on fire. Yeah. So I guess I'm gonna agree with the egg fire being the
Yeah.
best. Um, we're nobody wants to say any filth on this movie, right? It's a film. It's an action
No.
One
sci-fi
could
horror
argue that
film.
like there are definitely people who criticize the idea of taking a horror movie and making a sequel that's an action.
Yeah,
But
sometimes that's bad. I can't
I
think
do
off the top
think
of my
this
head.
film does it because it still has a lot of horror DNA, I would
Yeah, this
argue.
is you could it is more like a horror movie. Look, like Matt said something about us not having to watch it. It had been a long time since I'd watched this, so I did need to watch it. It was a lot more horror-y than I remembered it being, which was nice because
Interesting is a lot less horror-y to me, but that's probably because in the past 10 years, I've probably watched Alien a lot more than Aliens. So, maybe I had the like reverse, kind of thing going on.
well, you have to remember that before that Cameron before this did the Terminator, which is a lot more like a horror movie than
Yeah, it's
most people
a
think.
thriller or a horror for sure.
I guess it really doesn't do jump scares. Even Aliens doesn't, I mean, it has like some light jump scares, but it doesn't have like a real jump scare, I would say. Am I wrong?
Yeah, it's not a jump scare kind of horror movie. But like that's never the
Well,
best
yeah,
kind of horror to me anyway.
I'd say there's a jump scare when like they're alone in the room and the face hugger comes out from under the bed. That's pretty
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
jump
yeah.
scary.
Or the
Yeah, you're pretty well. I mean,
it
she's
has
like,
it
she,
has more fake out jump scares than it does real ones.
hmm.
You know, guy comes up behind you, puts
Yeah.
your hand on the shoulder kind of jump
I
scare.
guess I'm just saying it because the original Alien has like two of the most iconic and best jump scares ever. I still fast forward through the first
Yeah.
one with the first face hugger. I'll just fast forward through that scene while I'm watching it. Just a few seconds here. Up
Yeah.
there he is. Okay, let's go. Um, well,
Now, I mean, what I want to ask both of you is, do you feel like I feel like a lot of the DNA of this film made its way into Avatar and Avatar 2. Do you feel like those
I'd say
films are sort of a refinement of this, or do you feel like this is like overwhelmingly better?
I
I
love Avatar and Avatar 2. I feel like those films exist because David Cameron got sick of being subtle. I was like, oh, you're not going to listen to me? Then I'm going to shove it down your throats.
You said David Cameron again.
Yeah, I know, James Cameron.
That
David
just has
Cameron
to
also
I
said that.
don't want that. Well, yeah, he shoved it down a pig's throat, but
yeah. Yeah, I think that there are some things that Avatar and Avatar 2 do better, which is kind of interesting that I don't feel too much like that he's plagiarizing himself because really it's weird to look at his work where I was like, "Oh, how many times is he on the good list?" Like he's on it twice, but he's only made a handful of films, really.
yeah,
I
well, that's
think
it. Because we were talking about like, man, isn't it crazy that he pumped out like Terminator, Aliens, whatever, that quickly? But then he very quickly goes the other way, and it's like he makes so much money that he's basically given carte blanche. to take like 10 years per movie at this point.
Well, I would say it takes till Titanic for that to really kick in because we got The Abyss, Terminator 2,
True
True
Lies.
Lies,
Yeah.
and then Titanic. And then after Titanic, absolutely. Everyone's
Yeah,
like, I
but
guess he
like
just wants
I guess
to go deep sea diving now.
between this to Titanic, he's working at a sensible pace.
Mm,
He's
Yeah.
not pumping him out like he was here at the start. So he pumps out enough, sets his reputation up,
yeah.
works steadily, basically saves the studio with Titanic, and then he's allowed to make Avatar.
Anyway, Mark, to answer your question, I think it's kind of like, like, again, you can plagiarize yourself if you do it in a cool way. Like the Beatles'
Hmm.
Glass Onion references like 8 old Beatles songs, and it's fine, it's a good song. So I guess that's how I would come out with Avatar. Um, I do have a couple 1-star reviews I want to blop through.
Cool.
You want
While you
them?
do those, I'm gonna go piss.
Okay, have fun.
All
I guess
right.
I'll read the long
Holy
one
shit!
first then. Holy shit.
This
Piss
table
or
is a
shit?
tattoo, and I almost pushed the top off the table.
Oh, okay. I'll probably edit a bit of this as I read. It's kind of long, but this one says not even
All right.
half of the first one. I'm sorry to disagree with about 90% of this website, but I did not find the sequel to be anything but a rehash of the first. Not only is it a rehash, but it's also brought to life some of the really dumb stereotypes that exist in movies today. Crummy dialogue that is fixed to sound cool and awesome or in with the times. And you know what? It isn't. Now, before you dismiss the rest of my review, I want to add that I tried to like this film. For a long while, I tried to find some cool ways to see it, and you know what? I thought I had for a while. But the things that so many people hold it up higher than the first, and I just can't see why. I guess I'd be more open to give it a second chance. But people keep saying it's better than the first, and I just don't agree. I think the opening was all right until the shock sequence when, uh-oh, she might have something in her stomach, and oh, just a dream. How cheap. Why would they even rely that much on the first? And he keeps going, but it does say most of Sigourney's dialogue was pretty awesome. Of course, Sigourney was great. I'll give it that. But the rest, it just seems too imposed and buffed. And for what? So that's one. Here's a shorter one. This one just says terrible. This movie is hot trash, and it's spelled capital T space capital R space, and you can figure out the rest. I finished watching it with a friend because he had to finish it, and I watched the last 15 minutes of it. It was probably the worst graphics, the worst logic, and painful to watch. I don't know if I can ever recover. Even Sesame Street is better. I love those when they just have some weird out of line comparison. Like, this isn't even as good as Sesame Street. What? Do people hate Sesame Street? Also, it seemed to only watch the last 15 minutes. So, um,
Well, I found one that I kind of like, I
okay, do it.
think.
Do it.
All right, moronic sequel to Alien. This is from 2012. Ridley Scott wants to make a brilliant sci-fi film called Alien. Many years later, he made an equally brilliant prequel called Prometheus. In the years between, people tried to make their own sequels. One of these people was a man called James Cameron.
Not
First, he
David.
decided to make his version sentimental by introducing an irritating child that kept screaming so Ripley could say dumb things to reassure it. Fortunately, David Fincher had the brat killed off in time for his version. Cameron also decided that he wanted the film dominated by a group of U.S. Marines. These Marines were to have a combined IQ of about -5. All the Marines said things like, "Let's go," and "Oh my God, what is that?" Most irritating of all was Bill Paxton. Shame on you. He ended every sentence with the word man. Fortunately for the viewer, the aliens soon disemboweled him. The heroine of the film was to be given lines just as bad as the Marines. The aliens were not scary, no matter how many there were. The spaceships looked second-hand. After an hour of this farrago, Farrago,
Yeah, that is the right.
Yeah.
one's eyelids began to close. The Marines shot at the aliens with their huge weaponry. Lance Henriksen got his head blown off, but carried on talking. Happily, when the Marines were killed, death applied to their tonsils, too. After this success, Mr. Cameron got to make a 3-hour-long film about a ship that was perfectly designed. It sank. 452 people found this helpful.
James Cameron didn't make up the Titanic.
I love these when they start off like criticizing something and then just start summarizing it. Like
Yeah,
they
yeah.
slip in and out of summaries.
Luke, you missed the final sentence of the one I was reading, which said, "Even Sesame Street is better." Like, what? I guess we should start closing up shop today. Any final thoughts?
This movie's great. I
Yeah,
still
good
do like
movie.
Alien better, but damn, it's close.
I agree.
I do like Aliens better,
and that's fine.
but yeah, I was recently having this conversation with my friend. Like, people say, like, oh, each to their own, it's a matter of taste. Deep down, we don't really believe that most of the time. Like, if someone says, oh, I don't actually like Mario Galaxy, I said, oh, well, each to their own. Actually, I am judging you, and I think less of you as a human being.
The fuck you, Alien is
Hmm.
better.
Right? But, like,
Huh.
specifically Terminator and Terminator 2, Alien and Aliens, I really can see the argument both ways.
Mhm.
It's just which do you prefer? Are you more into like a tense horror or do you just want action? I want action.
Yeah, and
So,
I have also stated this before, but I think James Cameron has this thing where he kind of salts the earth when he makes his second movie, and it's impossible to follow it up, which is, I think, part of why the franchise is kind of flailed after this. And we'll see
Oh,
if
well,
Avatar Fire and Ash, it'll be the first time he's ever made a third movie of anything, which is
mm.
very exciting.
He was like Terminator 3, he wasn't completely opposed to it, but they were like, oh yeah, we'll write it for you. And he's like, well, no, then.
Right. I do remember that. Like it was a weird thing where Carolco got really kind of cocky about stuff and they sort of weren't willing to work with him. And then they made the movie and gave Schwarzenegger a ton of money. And then it was terrible and it flopped and it destroyed their company, like for their hubris. I think that's sort of a Cliff Notes version. I'm sure there's more to it than that. But
And I think
um,
he was involved in Dark Fate as well. But he was
Oh
yeah,
not
yeah,
really
yeah.
involved in the way that George Lucas was involved in all those Star Wars games and comics, where like someone said, like, oh, hey, George, did Darth Vader have a secret apprentice? And he goes, yes. And that means that it's a George Lucas approved story.
but it's one of those things where remember when Terminator, I don't remember if Salvation was like this, but Terminator Genesis, he definitely came out was like, I've seen this movie and I love it. I love the sequel. It's great. And then he did the same thing for Dark Fate. I think the reason Dark Fate bombed so hard and it did do worse than I think any other Terminator movie is that people just didn't believe anybody anymore.
Yep.
They weren't willing to give it a
Which is too
chance.
bad. It's like The Boy Who Cried
It is
Yeah.
Wolf.
the best one since the two good ones.
Yeah.
Definitely. But it's also like you have to ask like is it the viewer's fault for being skeptical? Is it the voters' fault or
No.
is it the Democratic Party's fault?
Well, yeah, the
You know?
Democratic Party offered nothing.
So there you go.
They didn't even
It's
offer
really
us a Dark Fate.
yeah,
They just
if they
offered us a
just
different brand of
yeah.
Genesis.
Yeah. If they just offered a Dark Fate in like 1997 with Edward Furlong in it, like
Oh
he
yeah.
actually
Yeah.
gets shot to instead of a CGI, well whatever.
That's a different can of worms.
Yeah, but
That's a way
then
different
we
universe.
wouldn't get a Schwarzenegger who'd been living for 50 years or so.
Yeah,
Drape
God, that
Sky.
was
Yeah.
so good. But
Um, I'm gonna close this one up for today. If you're digging it, give us good reviews for Films and Filth, on all the podcatchers. Check out Time Enough Podcast where we talk about the Twilight Zone.
You can
Podcast
find
night.
all of our podcasts by going to podcastiopodcastius.org.
Okay, do that if you want.
Or if that
nice.
doesn't work, maybe you have to go to podcastiopodcastius.transistor.fm. But
We'll
hopefully
figure
that
it out.
works by the time you hear this.
Nice.
Game over, man. Game over.
That's what I was going to do. Fuck you.
I know. I beat you to it.